Great. Well, welcome everyone. Today we're having a conversation with two esteemed doctors here about pioneering solutions in addiction treatment. Um, and one of the primary goals of our meeting today is that we want to make sure you're well aware of CellMosaic's investment campaign, which is closing very soon on Start Engine. Anyway, this is a very timely opportunity to learn about a breakthrough that could transform how we approach opioid addiction treatment. The statistics are sobering. Every 7 minutes, someone in America loses their life to an opioid overdose. And while this crisis continues to devastate communities across our nation, today we'll explore a promising new approach that could offer months of protection for vulnerable patients. And we're privileged to have with us two distinguished leaders who are at the forefront of this innovative treatment approach. First, Dr. Kathryn Frietze, Associate Professor at the University of New Mexico Health and Sciences Center, Department of Molecular Genetics and Microbiology. Dr. Frietze's groundbreaking research in vaccine development and immunology has recently led to a breakthrough publication in Vaccine, presenting a novel approach to addressing the opioid crisis. And joining her is Dr. Yumei Huang, CEO and founder of CellMosaic. Under Dr. Huang's leadership, CellMosaic has grown from a promising startup to a revenue-generating biotech company serving over 500 customers globally. And their proprietary aqua-tethered technology platform, which is protected by 12 patents, is now opening new possibilities in addiction treatment. So before I turn it over to our speakers today, I wanted to remind you a couple small housekeeping items. We aren't using the chat button. We do want to encourage you to participate in our Q&A at the end. So add your questions anytime throughout the presentation in the Q&A button down below. Again, not in the chat, just in the Q&A. And we'll get to it probably toward the end, but definitely want to encourage you to ask any questions that you have. And I want to remind you also that CellMosaic's investment offering is closing very soon on Start Engine. And I'm going to drop the link in the chat in case you want to learn more there or consider investing. Okay, so with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Kathryn to talk about her work.
All right, thank you. I'm just going to share my screen here. All right, so my name is Kathryn Frietze, and I'm an associate professor at the University of New Mexico School of Medicine, and we do work on vaccine development. The work I'm going to talk about, really briefly today, before we get into questions and more discussion, is our work on vaccines to fight the opioid epidemic. We have funding from the NIH to work on this project, and this is a collaboration with a number of individuals. And I just wanted to highlight Dr. Bryce Chakarian and Isabella Romano, who is a graduate student in my lab that's done a lot of work on this. Bryce Chakarian is a collaborator here at University of New Mexico. And so I will just get right into it. I need to have this disclaimer from my employer. So all views expressed in this are my own and don't represent the views of the University of New Mexico. So as was mentioned, we have this opioid crisis that's going on. I'm sure many people know about this. Many people are directly affected by this. Personally, I've had a lot of people come up to me and tell me their own stories of family members, friends, themselves who have been impacted by the opioid epidemic. There are medications for individuals who have opioid use disorder. That's the technical name for opioid addiction. However, access to these treatments is really limited. It's difficult, especially in New Mexico, where I'm from, to access care like methadone. This is only offered in clinics. Individuals who are suffering from opioid addiction and are seeking treatment are referred to methadone clinics, where they have to go in person every day to receive their medication. Now, if you think about somebody who's already struggling with addiction, may have lost their job, may be experiencing homelessness, may not have a car, it's really challenging to access these medications. Additionally, Narcan, which many people may be familiar with, is for emergency treatment of opioid overdose. And it's highly effective. However, you need to have somebody on site to give that to the person who's experiencing overdose. And so although it is really effective, we really need to have other treatment options. We need to have treatment options that people can readily access and can really be effective. So this idea of opioid vaccines is generally an idea that's been around for a while. And I'm just going to quickly go over kind of what the idea is here. The idea is that if there's a person who is seeking treatment for opioid use disorder or opioid addiction, or somebody who's at risk of overdose, you could potentially have a vaccine that would target opioids. And I'll talk a little bit more about how that can work. Just like a normal vaccine that you would think about, COVID vaccine, polio vaccine, these vaccines elicit an immune response in the individual. And that particular immune response is antibodies. Now, these are just proteins that are, circulating around in your body at all times. Usually they're against a pathogen like a bacteria or a virus, and they're there to be ready to fight against an invading pathogen. However, we can also make these antibodies against drugs if we do some fancy little tricks. And so the idea is that if you have these antibodies in your body against opioids, then if that person relapses and takes an opioid or is exposed to it through overdose, then those antibodies are able to rapidly bind up the drug in the blood and prevent it from crossing into the brain where the receptors for that drug are located. And so basically, it's a way to just prevent the drug from getting into those spots of the body that the drug acts. The result of this is that the person won't feel the effects of the drug. And so in terms of addiction, if you don't feel the effects of the drug, you don't have that reinforcement of feeling good when you take the drug. And so it's thought that this can be a way to treat addiction against opioids. There's many studies that have been done, not by my lab, but other labs, that these vaccines can really help in animal models with addiction. It's still yet to be seen if this is going to work in people for addiction, but it's something that could be really promising. The other idea here is that if you can make enough antibodies, then you might be able to prevent or delay opioid overdose, which would be really, really revolutionary and help a lot of people. So what are we doing within this space? So my research group is using a vaccine strategy called virus-like particles. And in particular, we use virus-like particles from bacteriophage. Now, bacteriophage are viruses that actually infect bacteria. So the nice thing about these is you can make them in very large quantities relatively cheaply. So these virus-like particles, which are shown here in blue with the yellow dots, this is from a particular virus-like particle called Q beta. And these are small and highly repetitive structures. What that means is that when you inject this into a person or into a mouse, it immediately just screams foreign invader. And so the body, really, the immune system makes a lot of antibodies to these virus-like particles when you inject them. Now, we can take advantage of this for vaccine design by attaching things to the surface. And so anything that's attached to the surface of these virus-like particles also becomes very highly immunogenic, and the body makes a lot of antibodies to this. So my lab and my collaborators' lab have used these virus-like particles to target a number of different pathogens like bacteria, viruses, and they are very good at eliciting these antibody responses. And so our idea was, why don't we attach these drugs of interest to the surface of these virus-like particles and see if we can get really good antibody responses. And so that's exactly what we've done. Now, where CellMosaic comes into all of this is we are not chemists in my lab. We are biologists and vaccinologists. And so at the very start of this project, we were looking for somebody who could make these drugs and modify them so that they could be attached to the surface of the virus-like particles. And so what we needed to do was to have the drugs basically modified so that they have this short linker sequence, which is a short peptide linker sequence. What we really needed was at the end of this to have a free what's called sulfhydryl group. So this is a reactive group on the drug conjugate so that we can attach it to our virus-like particle. We looked around, we contacted several different companies, and Yumei and CellMosaic were really the only ones that were able to do this for us. They had the expertise to make this drug attached to this short peptide, and they were able to do it relatively quickly for us. And so every time I've contacted Yumei about a drug that we need to attach to our virus-like particles, she's been able to quickly give us a quote and make that for us. Now we're able to attach a lot of the drug to the surface here. We get up to 720 individual drug molecules attached to our virus-like particle. And that's part of what makes these virus-like particles really, really effective. So I'm not going to show you a bunch of data. I will say that we have a lot of experiments that we've done. We've put these vaccines into mice, into rats. We've seen really high antibody responses that last for a very long time. So we think these vaccines would be really efficacious and have really durable responses, which is great for eventually translating that into people who need protection for a long time. The other thing we've done is we've looked at whether our vaccines are able to block drug activity. And so we've shown that in mouse models. And the most recent thing that we've been working on is to look at fentanyl overdose with our vaccines. And so we have some data that that shows that we do get some reduction in the amount of respiratory depression that happens. So when you give fentanyl to a mouse or to a person, their respiration, so their breathing slows down. And so we've been able to show with our vaccines that vaccinated animals, we actually are able to rescue some of that. And so their respirations don't go down quite as much and they recover faster. And so we're following up on a lot of that work. I do want to just talk about like who would take these vaccines. There's a number of different groups that are at risk for opioid overdose with fentanyl. So individuals who are actually obviously using fentanyl, so going out and using fentanyl on purpose for recreational purposes, those people are at high risk of overdose. Additionally, people who are taking other recreational drugs that may be contaminated with fentanyl. A lot of the fentanyl overdoses that happen are happening because people don't know that they're taking fentanyl. So other drugs like heroin, cannabis can be contaminated with fentanyl. So drug dealers will contaminate those drugs with fentanyl because there's an additional effect that the fentanyl gives for those users. Additionally, we've thought a lot about first responders and military. So fentanyl is a concern for use as a chemical weapon. So military personnel, first responders who may respond to a chemical weapon attack with fentanyl, they may also be individuals who could benefit from a fentanyl vaccine. And additionally, people who are getting ready to be released from incarceration, they are also at risk of overdose by opioids. So individuals who have opioid use disorder, have been incarcerated, and then basically get clean during the time that they're incarcerated and then released are at very high risk of overdose and fatal overdose because they've lost their tolerance that they developed previously And if they relapse, then they're at high risk. And so this could be a way to protect those individuals as well. And I'm going to stop there with my presentation as just a brief overview of what we do.
Thank you, Kathy. I can take over and then just share a little bit about the CellMosaic. What's our role there? Okay, can you see it? Sorry. Oh, sorry. We do it. Okay. Yes, so before I start, I need to just to show that, which Abby just mentioned that we currently have a regulatory crowdfunding offering active through Star Engine. So this is a standard disclaimer I need to show to you. So just take a look at it. So basically the investment involves a high degree of risk, so including the possible losses of the entire investment. So what CellMosaic does is CellMosaic is established in 2008 with a mission to try to make cancer drugs more effective and less toxic. But beyond the cancer part, we actually does a lot of bioconjugates. We call it bioconjugates. So what is a bioconjugate? So bioconjugates is a molecule constructs formed by chemically linking two or more molecules together, typically combine like proteins, enzyme, peptide, oligos with, you can also with drugs together. So CellMosaic use this bioconjugation just as like a tool. We sometimes call them a smart package because most of these bioconjugates contain these specific molecules which can target the specific cells in the body while leaving healthy cells unharmed. So these smart packages we enable like precision medicines, reduce side effects, make existing drugs more effective, and also can open new possibilities for treatment. So there's various platforms, bioconjugation platforms at CellMosaic. One of the notable one is the linker technology. We call it acquitaser linker technology. So acquitaser is we use this like a sweetness, which is like kind of sugar additives you use you eat. We use that making various types of linker. So they're really highly hydrophilic. So they can use to address the solubility and stability issues of like antibody drug conjugate, target therapies, and other bioconjugate. So we have like a really strong IP position on this linker technology. So we have over 12 patents issued all over the world, and we're also one of the only non-profit organization got the the breast cancer breakthrough award from the Department of Defense in 2014, level 1 award. And currently we have 2 collaborations going on with some collaborators who is using our linker technology to make some of the drug. So there are other additional platform in the bioconjugation. One is the oxylinker as a linker technology and NEO platform. So these two platform is just complementary with the acquitaser linker technology. So 2 weeks ago, I did have another seminar talking about this platform is specifically for the cancer drugs like other ones. So you can go to our YouTube, CellMosaic's YouTube channel, so you can see it there. So today I was mainly focused on talking about the proprietary bioconjugation process here. So since 2008, CellMosaic spent a lot of effort to developing all kinds of process for assemble this smart package of we call it bioconjugates. And this process also involves all these validated manufacturing protocols. Plus, we also established comprehensive quality control system. This supports various bioconjugates, preparations, and the mainly used for CellMosaic, intended use for customer projects and collaborations. And we also use this process to actually commercialize another, we call a pack kit platform, basically commercialize the kit, which is customers can use in the standard lab, research lab. So currently the packet ADC is used by over 159 organizations. And then the internal use for customer bioconjugation service, we served over 104 organizations, including Cassie's university, the University of New Mexico. So in 2019, when Kathy is asking us, have you ever done this before? So when she need some of the bioconjugate, basically she need a link this oxycodone, like a fentanyl opioid type of drug with the peptide linker, so which is right fit into our bioconjugation process. Although we haven't actually never done it with at that time with oxycodone, and then but because we have this process already established in various compounds, so the core structures are similar, so the chemistry, so it's very fast for us to basically just kind of like a kind of accommodated on that synthesis. I think so 2019 we started with oxycodone and we moved to morphine, and then finally in 2023 we did the fentanyl. So it is a great collaboration, and we're so happy to be part of that project, which will be really helping solve really big problems in the world. So going forward, like what we can support in this project is really in the CMC part, means chemistry, manufacture, and then control. So CMC is the activities goes throughout the drug development process, is one of the most important part. When you make the drugs, you want them be consistent, right, from lot to lot when you're going to scale up, especially in the clinical trial and all these things. So far right now we are just doing the small scale synthesis, and we're only doing the proof of concept studies. So, but going forward, we do need doing the scale up. We need to define the specification of the product, and then we need to get the GMP process established. So currently, that's also one of the reasons right now we are doing the fundraising. So we hoping to bring some of the money, helping us with this manufacturer, like the facilities establishment. So I think we might also talking about as I was just had a conversation with Cassie about the roadmaps to going forward, how to make these things commercialized successfully. So we might also have to talk, like seeking additional funding from federal grant, since the U.S. government has great interest in this project. So I think yeah, maybe we can start in questions at this point. I think that's mainly like
sure, absolutely. So I want to remind everybody who's here that you can add your own questions to the Q&A button down at the bottom, and we would be very happy if you were to do that. But I have a first question for Dr. Frietze. So you recently published a paper in Vaccine that showed promising results. Can you explain in lay terms how this treatment approach differs from current options?
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit about, so we're not the only ones that are making vaccines against opioids, but one of the reasons that we got involved in this is because our vaccine platform, like I talked about, is really good at eliciting antibody responses that last for a very long time and that are really high. There's really high amounts of antibodies that get released. And so some of the other vaccine strategies that people are using for opioid vaccines require multiple immunizations. So we can get protection in animals right now with just 2 immunizations, whereas some of the other vaccines that are being tested right now by other groups are requiring 4, 6, even more immunizations. And so when you think about a person who might benefit from one of these vaccines, somebody who needs to come back and get vaccines 6 times may not benefit fully from a vaccine like this. And so being able to get a vaccine that can be delivered quickly and you can get that really good protective immune response quickly is, we think, really important to making these vaccines work in the actual clinic with people. The other thing I think that our vaccines are able to do, or that have they have promise for is with opioid overdose. And so other groups have also looked at trying to get protection from overdose. It's a pretty high bar to reach, but you would need a really high antibody response. And so our vaccines are really able to make very high antibody responses. And the fact that we're already seeing in our initial experiments protection against respiratory depression with fentanyl is very promising. And part of what we're doing with our work is trying to optimize these vaccines and make them even better so that we get even better protection against overdose.
I know I'm actually curious about we've got a question coming in. I was wondering if you had any surprising things that happened as related to, I don't know, any surprising outcomes from your studies so far?
I think the fact that we were getting some protection against respiratory depression was really exciting. I think that's the most exciting thing that we've seen so far. Because again, it's a very high bar that you are trying to reach with protection against overdose. And so the fact that we did see some protection in just our initial studies where we didn't do anything additional to try to make our vaccines better is I think really promising.
And then looking at the CellMosaic connection, it's important that you found them in particular, right? Because it allows it, like, that's kind of the crucial piece that's missing, right? Maybe can you talk a little bit about that?
Right. Yeah. So when we were first looking at some of this, we knew that we were going to have to find somebody to make these drugs with in the way that we wanted them made. And as I mentioned, when we first went out to look for a company that could do it, we were having a hard time. And then I came across CellMosaic and immediately we're like, yes, they can do it. And the fact that they were able to do it with not very much problem was very exciting for us and really expanded what we were looking at. In some of the other we've looked at oxycodone, we've looked at fentanyl. Fentanyl and oxycodone are very different structurally. And so the fact that CellMosaic was able to make both of those relatively easily was really exciting for us and really moved our research forward quickly in ways that we weren't expecting.
Okay. So here's a question. Is it possible to have a combination vaccine treatment for multiple drugs?
Yes. So our initial work that our initial grant that we were working on with from the NIH was looking at a combined heroin and fentanyl vaccine. And when we immunize with vaccines that target both to protect against heroin and fentanyl, we are able to see that we get really good antibody responses to both. So when you combine them together, you don't diminish the immune response that you're getting to each individual vaccine. And we were able to see in our studies that we were seeing the same amount of protection as well.
So a little for the lay people in the crowd, right? You're talking a lot about immune response and antibody loads. So the real benefit there is that you're like, maybe you could explain it, as if I was not slightly less technical.
Yeah. So if you immunize with just one of the vaccines, so let's say you're making a vaccine against fentanyl, we can immunize with that. We get really great immune response to fentanyl and we get protection against fentanyl. So we're seeing protection in terms of blocking the drug activity, right? And then if we vaccinate with just a vaccine against heroin, we see protection against heroin. We see really good immune responses. So those are two separate vaccines. If we inject an animal with both of those vaccines together at the same time, we see the exact same thing. So they have protection against fentanyl and heroin at the same time. So there's definitely the possibility that if we want to, we can move forward with combined vaccines against different drugs.
Yeah, well, we definitely have some technical people in the crowd because this next question is, do you produce anti-idiotypic antibodies with your particles? If yes, do these antibodies bind to the fentanyl receptors?
So we have not looked specifically at anti-idiotypic antibodies with the particles. I'm not quite sure if whoever asked the question can maybe
Clarifying question.
clarify a little bit.
maybe?
Yeah, because we get antibodies that bind to the particles. That does not stop anything. So I'd want a little bit more information on this
Oh,
to give a
okay.
more
So
technical answer.
maybe it's something related to the immune response, right? So you're saying that it's not about binding up the chemical in the blood as much as it is to creating
No, it is to the chemical.
Okay.
So we are, I'm just trying to interpret the question and what they're getting at.
Right, okay.
But yeah, so when we inject with our virus-like particles with the drug on the surface, we get antibodies to the drug. And so those antibodies then are able to bind to the drug. We do not get antibodies to the fentanyl receptors. Okay, I'm understanding now kind of what they're asking here. We have not checked that. Yeah, we haven't checked it, but we don't have any evidence that I don't really have a reason to believe that that would be a problem. The anti-idiotypic antibodies. We have not checked specifically for that.
Okay. Here's the next one. Will this treatment be fast-tracked considering the life-saving aspect of the drug?
I feel like we're on the fastest track we can possibly be. So our group has received a UG3 UH3 from the NIH. We have completed, so this is a 2-phase grant. The first phase was around $2 million, and the second phase is around $3 million. The first phase is, and these were very targeted grants specifically for opioid vaccines. And the end goal of it's supposed to be 5 years, but you can get extensions. And so it's really a 5-year grant in total. And the end of the 5 years, the NIH said that they wanted to have a manufacturing milepost accomplished by the end of the 5 years. So we've completed the first stage of that grant, the UG3 stage, and we made the vaccines. We did initial immunogenicity studies. We showed proof of concept efficacy studies in rodents, and then we are awaiting our second phase. So, and that second phase, at the end of that will be manufacturing milestones. And so, in terms of fast-tracked, I think the NIH especially is very interested in moving these vaccines forward, and because of the opioid crisis. And so the NIH funding that we have to support our research is funded from an initiative at the NIH called HEAL, which is helping end addiction long-term. This is a federal government initiative to really address the opioid crisis with scientific research. And so we're a part of that.
Dr. Huang, I have a question for you related to the business model supporting UNM in their development work. I know they're not using any of their kits. So you're doing proprietary bioconjugation services for them. Can you kind of talk us through like what next steps look like around the business model?
Yes, so I mean, like although CellMosaic's majority is focused on the cancer treatment, so there is like similarity between developing the vaccines and developing, the cancer. They are ultimately they are drug development. So they share the same core is the chemistry part, the manufacturing, and the control part, as I was mentioning about the CMC before. So the drug conjugation is similar as the way how we do the antibody drug conjugate. So everything is kind of synergetic. So in our business model cases, the CellMosaic all we does is really supporting the tools and then the ways to helping our partners and the customers to developing the drugs. So we do that by going, like supply the products and the kits they can use. We also do the customer bioconjugation basically through the like a CDMO type kind of business model to helping the customer to. So we will build up the manufacturing facilities, helping them to define the specifications of the product and then make the process kind of scale up. So overall, we'll be in the every steps on this drug development cases and then helping out with the process. So I know Kathy, when Kathy mentioned that we're the only one who can make it, because the reason is that these drugs, which are the opioid drugs, is very difficult to actually to derivatize, and then the molecule itself is difficult to work with. The fact that we can make it very fast because we have been over the last 15 years to constantly developing all this process, how to deal with different types of chemicals, the small molecules, how to derivatize them, label them, so we can use them to attach to all the biomolecules. So it's all the same kind of course, like same mission we have been doing for a long time. So that's why we have a lot of tools in our hand to helping our partners to get this compound quickly.
And what are some key milestones that investors should watch for over the next 12 to 18 months?
You mean in terms in my company or in Cassie or in the Cassie's development of the vaccine?
I was thinking about your company in particular, but it sounds like maybe we could get an update on the phase 2 of the grant or any other work that might be happening on UNM side.
I mean, in CellMosaic, so we are really like concentrated on, that we were trying to get the acquitizers, making all kinds of different acquitizer linked drugs, so we can use that for a partnership, like a kind of collaboration. And also we're trying to replace the majority of the bioconjugate right now in the market with acquitizer. So that way we get a second generation bioconjugates, the customers can use it for the one. And in terms of customer project, we will be really looking forward to trying to build up small scale and medium scale GMP facilities, so we can helping our collaborators and customers, which if they need to do the manufacturing for this IND filing or clinical trial. So that's what. So within 12 to 18 months, that's pretty much our goal, is trying to get these 3 things done.
Great.
So Cassie probably talk about the grant things. Yes.
Yeah, for us, we're waiting right now just for the funding from the NIH. We are expecting it, like NIH funding, anytime soon. We've been told that we are going to get the funding. But so what we're really focused on right now is getting really solid data that we can prevent overdose in a rodent model. That's something that the NIH asked us for. And so that's really our main focus right now, is doing a number of different modifications to our vaccine, including adding some different adjuvants, changing our immunization schedule to try to get better responses so that we can get really good protection against overdose.
One thing in our investor acquisition discussions that we're always looking at, because investors want to know, well, what is the scope of potential for impact around this? Can you give us a little bit of a sense about the market opportunity for, I mean, you identified multiple different groups who could potentially benefit or have need for a type of treatment, but what do you think about the market size for the need here?
I just dig a little bit about market size. According to the grant renew research, so the market size for the opioid use disorder is like around 5 billion in 2024, and then it goes to 10 billion by 2030. So currently they're like according to the NIH, there are like 5 million people actually is using some of the like the opiate drugs. So that's a lot of crowd, a lot of people who have been using that. Yeah, Cassie might have other data.
I will just defer to you on that. You seem like you have the best
$5 billion now growing to $10 billion in a short amount of time.
Yeah, in 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty colossal
Yeah,
crisis.
right now 60% of the people is by the small molecule drug. So right now they're using, which Cassie showed in the beginning. So I don't think there is any vaccine available at this point. So vaccine with once Cassie's vaccines go into the market, this will be total game changer. So it might be also, you can use not just the people who misuse it. Sometimes I think they can also use as a preventive maintenance, like a kind of. So that would be expanded the market probably.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, as I mentioned, our real goal right at the moment is to focus on developing a vaccine against fentanyl that would prevent overdose. And that really expands beyond just individuals who are actively using fentanyl recreationally. That is including other individuals who may be concerned about being exposed to it. And so,
especially the fast transmission.
there's news stories about, teenagers who were using cannabis and overdosed on fentanyl because the cannabis that they were using was contaminated with fentanyl. So you're reaching beyond just like, users who are abusing opioids and reaching into even more common recreational drugs like cannabis. And so I think it has really the potential to open up to an even bigger group.
Absolutely. Gosh, what a scary world we live in, huh? Anyway, so we are getting to the near the end of our discussion here today. So I really want to make sure that anyone who has a question here for either of our two esteemed doctors has a chance to ask those questions, sooner than later. Yeah, because we are going to be wrapping up here before too long. Dr. Huang, for you, how does CellMosaic's current revenue stream and business model support the development of this new treatment? Kind of touched on this a bit.
Yes, so right now this project is kind of following into the customer bioconjugation service. So basically the cost is covered by the NIH grant. So it's kind of easy for us to support. But once this goes beyond just the small scales, going to the manufacturer and other things. So I definitely we would like to kind of bring in like more investment or maybe federal grant to build up the facility to the other things. But at this point, like we can easily support whatever Cassie needed on doing this proof of concept and then the development stage. Yeah.
Okay. Well, as we're starting to wrap up today, I want to thank Dr. Frietze and Dr. Huang for sharing your insights here today with all of us about this, what could be a transformative approach to addiction treatment. And to our audience, thanks for your questions. I just want to remind everyone that CellMosaic's investment offering on Start Engine is closing very soon. And you can learn more about the company and what they're doing and ask any questions there on the discussion board. That is always, if you didn't get a chance to ask your question today, you could head over to the Start Engine campaign, and I'm sure Dr. Huang will quickly reply to you should you have any questions. And we will be following up with a full recording by email after the event. Dr. Huang, any final remarks here?
Yeah, thank you all joining here. It's also thanking Kathy to come here to explain the whole like vaccine treatment things. So I mean, like every this I think drug development needs a lot of effort, need a lot of collaborations, and definitely need a lot of investment. So I think, so any kind of investment, that especially when we're trying to move forward, like if we want to go into the actually become a commercialization, we do need to build up the manufacturing facilities and to able to make these things. So hopefully, which you can all join us and then goes to this journal to make this into reality. Thank you.